Yeah. Next topic is we need to talk about Nebraska basketball.
All right.
I was listening to your podcast with DK. Talking some buy or sell Big Ten schools. I don't believe any Nebraska talk got mentioned. Y'all are Big Ten guys. I'm sort of Big Ten adjacent. I keep tabs on it. Don't have the same blood, sweat, and tears invested in it as y'all. But from an outsider's perspective, I'm kind of intrigued by their roster. But at the same time, like, hasn't that kind of been the story of the Fred Hoiberg era? Is there any way that this ends differently with some of the pieces he's brought in? Your thoughts?
Cargo first.
It is pretty. I mean, the story of Nebraska basketball. I do talk myself into Hoiberg's rosters like a lot, and I'm not saying I talk him into like competing in the Big Ten, but I talk about like you don't want to play Nebraska, I guess per se. Like they got some guys. Keisei Tominaga is probably my favorite guard in the country, and I've been saying that for a while. I really wanted him the portal. Like we needed Keisei at Duke next year. That would have been special, or North Carolina. Sorry, Riley. But like I would rather have Keisei than a Cormac Ryan, like 100%. I'm just saying, like,
Eh.
I don't know if I can buy the other parts of the roster still. I can't, and I think I've reached my breaking point with Hoiberg. I can't get myself to buy into like that roster being, I guess, quotation marks competitive. But Keisei Tominaga will be an all Big Ten player, probably.
Is he an all Big Ten player?
If he averages 20, you don't think he finds his way onto an all Big Ten team?
I don't think he's averaging 20. I think he's averaging like 12 and just going to have like the occasional
Stop.
games where he
You don't think
blows
he's
up.
averaging 15 minimum?
He averaged
Yeah,
13
he's getting
last year.
Right.
yeah,
So
he'll get
like
15 minimum, man. He's gonna get plenty of shots.
I
Like,
don't
yeah.
know.
I think
I
I
don't know if
think
he's that guy.
I have a hope that Keisei is this year's Budarius, and he's coming for your heart, Mr. Waddell.
I like Keisei. Don't get me wrong. No one will ever be my Budarius. That's just not possible. Also, I'd be very curious what Keisei's nickname ends up being if he earns a Carter Elliott middle name nickname. I feel like we would probably get canceled very quickly if Cart tried to go that route. But I here's my biggest issue with Nebraska for next year. CJ Wilcher is like maybe their third best player. And that's really scary to me. I don't know that there was a worse player in the Big Ten Conference last year that was like a starter than CJ Wilcher. I want to just rattle off some numbers because I genuinely was, when we went to see Nebraska, I was like, I can't believe this guy's in the rotation, let alone he's on the court the whole game. And they're in a tie game with the best team in the country, Purdue at the time. He shot below 40% from the field. He shot 31% from three on 4 attempts per game. He had more turnovers than assists. He shot 63% from the free throw line, and he just like played 30 minutes a game starting at the 2 for Fred Hoiberg. I never understood it. Maybe they didn't have better options, but they still don't have better options looking at the roster for next year. I like the Bryce Williams ad. That's good. I think they're going to miss Greasel a lot. And I think he was honestly pretty underappreciated. Like he didn't have the best year by any means, but like 12, 6, and 4 as a first-time Big Ten player who was pretty efficient was pretty impressive to me. They need somebody to like at least match that and take a step forward from that if this team's going to be better than last year. And I guess they're kind of hoping that's Bryce Williams, but then you're still relying on the same role players to take steps forward. And I'm not sure I see it, which is sad because I wish Fred Hoiberg was like a guy in this conference. I think it would be really good for the Big Ten if Fred Hoiberg like actually turned around Nebraska basketball and was kind of getting some recruiting momentum, but he's just not. Like he's stagnating from like the Bryce McGowan's years to it's going downhill now.
The whole program's okay. Just lose games, get a cake pop afterwards, and move on.
Yeah, they did. They literally gave out cake pops last year after losing to Purdue. It was horrifying.
You don't like cake pops, or it was more so just the
We're the maddest people in the arena. I mean, I did take a cake pop and it was delicious, but like I'm livid. And they're just handing out cake pops and everything's okay.
Yeah.
they've probably been kind of used to losing though. They never made a tournament.
Yeah, but there's no desire to change is the point. Like they're going to show up, be competitive, be happy that Keisei got his 18 and go home with a cake pop. That's Nebraska basketball, and that's horrible.
All right. Well, why I first wanted to even talk about Nebraska, I'm glad you mentioned Bryce Williams because he's another one of those 6'7" shooting wings who I actually love his addition. I think he comes from a good defensive scheme at UNC Charlotte, who won the CBI last year. Shout out to them. And just has like a smooth offensive game that I think maybe Hoiberg can finally get a team that can shoot above 32% from three. I was like looking at some of his Iowa State teams last night. When he was at Iowa State, he never had a team that shot below 36% from three. And yet at Nebraska, somehow, I think their best is like 33% 2 years ago or something. Like that to me doesn't make much sense how you can have that significant of a drop off just going from one program to another. But I would also say I'm intrigued by Rink Mast. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but it looked like a lot of he's kind of that back to the basket big who can also play out of dribble handoffs, do a little bit on the perimeter. And I wonder if Hoiberg will try to use him like he used Derek Walton last year and kind of get him in the middle of the floor, let him make plays from the elbow, top of the key type stuff. But I would kind of have hesitations about a Missouri Valley big translating to a lot of power conference levels. But I know in the Big Ten, there's going to be plenty of back to the basket bigs and guys who aren't necessarily the best athletes to where that might not get as exposed as it would had he gone to like the SEC or something.
I think that's fair. I also am really hopeful. This might just be my heart talking. I think this might be the year where we feel like the Big Ten centers died. Like there's like 7 dominant Big Ten centers and you need to be as big as possible. I think that ends this year because Dickinson's out, TJD's out. I'm forgetting who else. Like there's young centers that are coming up, but they're not like the gonna score 20 every night guys that you need to match up with. So, Card, is that crazy? Like I feel like we might get a small style of play change.
Yeah, I mean it'll definitely change after this year. Like this might be the one last run, like Edie's last run as big man of the conference. But as you know, there's a 7-footer in waiting, but they're probably not going to be Edie. At least I think they're not going to be.
Shout out Will Berg. Supposedly he can step out and shoot a little bit at 7'3". Also, Mady Sissoko leaves the conference after this year, unless he takes an extra year somehow. But the conference will stop shivering the moment that Mady Sissoko leaves. So that's good news.
Man, I don't want to. I feel like I already angered Spartans fans by coming at Connor Cook. I think I disrespected this game a little bit. After I made my comments, I looked at his stats and they were better than I remember. But I've been out on Mady Sissoko since Carter sent me a video of him dumbbell bench pressing 20 pounds like 2 years ago. Where if you're a D1 player and you're repping out 20-pound dumbbells, like I get that long arms probably makes bench press a little bit harder than it is for me, who's all of 5'11". But still, you got to be doing a little bit more than 20 pounds in a workout video being posted by your school's official social media page. That is almost the equivalent of Ty Rogers getting eaten alive by Dre Gibbs Lawhorn.
Definitely bad execution on his part and the social media team's part.
For those at home that don't know, Riley's a strong man. I think that's fair to say. Again, professional football player at one point in his life. He's a frequent gym goer. And Riley, I do feel like in attempts to be humble with it, I do feel like you would acknowledge that you might be stronger than a good segment of Division I college basketball players. Could we assign a percentage to this? What percent of Division I starters do you think you could out bench press?
Probably 60 to 70.
Wow. Maybe that's that Amani Bates wingspan.
Maybe that's ambitious. It's true. I do have that Amani Bates wingspan, but I know basketball players don't really work on bench press like that, or at least they didn't when I was in high school. Like squat would be a different story. My squat's pretty good, but I know that like D1 basketball players, I'm assuming, can squat a lot of weight.
What's your max bench, Riley? Like 900 pounds or something? Something insane?
In my prime, it was 390.
Say it.
390 in my prime.
Wow. 390?
Yeah. Right now, it's probably in like the 330s.
Yeah, do you bring powder to the gym with you? Jesus.
The one time I did do 390, it was I was high on some pre-workout that made me like grunt uncontrollably and sweat profusely, and I've never used it again, but it did give me that extra boost I needed.
Impressive stuff. We'll get these two to share their gym tune of the day playlists for all the listeners at home. Thank you, Riley Davis, for this. All right, let's move from Nebraska ball to the whatever the final topic is today. What do we got, Riley?